All right, welcome back to our Faith and Revelation class. We are on chapter 6 today, Christ revealed in His public life. You might remember that what we're talking about really in this entire semester is the ways in which God reveals God's self to us. And most especially, of course, God reveals and shows Himself to us in His Son. Right? We have all these ways in which God has done that in the Old Testament, but again, most particularly in His Son. And then faith, of course, then we've been talking about, that's our response to this revelation. So God says, here I am, this is who I am. And we're left to choose to have faith. And through the grace of God, we can say, I believe you, Lord. I put my life in you. I trust in what you're saying based on how you have and what you have revealed to me, right? So we're looking at these last chapter, this one and the next. We're breaking Christ's life down into three phases. And so we're looking at the ways in which Christ reveals Himself and reveals God to us in all these different aspects, right? All these different angles and to the way that God reveals Himself in Christ. So we talked about basically the early part of Christ's life. Now we're going to talk about the middle part of Christ's life, which is this sort of public ministry that He does for about 3 years in His life, where He's teaching, and we're going to get into all the things that He's doing in His public life, right? And so the first thing that happens that really kicks off or inaugurates the public ministry of Jesus would be the baptism in the Jordan, right? John the Baptist, who of course comes before Christ as sort of the prophet, his cousin as well. John the Baptist, the wild guy out in the desert telling everyone, prepare the way of the Lord, the Messiah is coming, those kind of things. And then of course Jesus eventually comes out to John, his cousin, and has John baptize Jesus. And we see that the following happens at the baptism of Jesus. And so this is a revelation. In this event, we see a revelation of God to the world. It says, He came up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened, and He saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on Him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Okay, this is my beloved Son. So this is revelation because God the Father is literally revealing in this, He's saying, in this person, this is my beloved Son, right? So there's this revelation, this revealing of God. The dove comes down on the Spirit of God descending like a dove. So this is this revelation of God. We see this in art. There's a lot of different beautiful images. In this one we see God the Father, the dove, the Holy Spirit coming down as John the Baptist is baptizing Jesus, right? And so it's being revealed to all of the people that were around to witness this event. And so that's one way in which God reveals God's self in the life of Jesus. And again, this is the beginning, the inauguration of His public ministry. Of course, we probably associate Jesus' public ministry with a couple of major general categories of things. One of those would be His teaching, right? When we think about Him walking around for those 3 years, He did a lot of teaching, right? He did a lot of explaining of things through parables and so forth. But this is another way in which God reveals Himself to us, whereby God coming and teaching. He's saying, these are the things that you need to know about God, right? You can't get more of a revelation than that, right? If I went around and told everyone, these are the things that you need to know about me, that would be me revealing myself to you, right? And so this is what Jesus in His teaching, first of all, one of the things, of course, is the content that He's teaching. He's saying, this is the things you need to know about me. But as we also realize in the gospel, part of His teaching, there was also a revelation in how He taught and with what authority He taught. It says this in Mark's gospel. The people were astonished at His teaching, so they were astonished at the content of what He's saying, right? The faith that He is explaining. But it says, for He taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. So people began to realize there's something special here in this God because of His knowledge and what He's teaching, but also the authority in how Christ is teaching. So it's like you had a really smart professor or a really smart teacher in high school who's teaching you great stuff, but then they're also sort of glowing, or the way they're teaching tells you something about them too, right? So it's the authority with which he's saying these things that also strikes people, right? And it says in Matthew's gospel very similarly, when Jesus finished these words, the crowds were astonished at his teaching. So it was amazing teaching. And then it also says, for he taught them as one having authority and not as their scribes. So basically, again, we hear this same thing in several different places throughout the gospel, right? So it's that authority that he taught with as well. It says he was revealed in his miracles as well, right? That's another, when we think about Jesus' public ministry, I think a lot of people, obviously, naturally, rightly so, will think about the miracles that Christ works. That's a huge element of what he did during those 3 years, right? There's an awesome chart. I'd never seen it before, but I really love it. It's in your textbook that I'm going to have you look at when we go to the questions for this chapter, right? So it lists all the different miracles of Christ in this chart, and it's just a beautiful thing to look at and kind of go through that. So I'll have you do that in the questions. Okay. And we want to fold into these miracles. We're also talking about the exorcisms. Those are miracles too. Those are the casting out of the demonic, the curing of people who have been possessed, those kind of things. Those are all parts of the miracles. The feeding the 5,000, of course, those kinds of miracles, and the exorcisms together. Okay. I think a line that sums up how Christ is revealed in this way is this. It says in the gospel, in Mark's gospel, right early on at the very beginning, Mark chapter 2, verse 9. He says, but that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, I say to you, rise, take up your mat, and go home. Right? Jesus tells us why he's working these miracles. He says this, but that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, which is, Jesus is saying, that's the really important thing. I want you to know that I am who I am. I am the Son of God. I am the Savior. I am the Messiah. I forgive sins. I can bring you everlasting life, etc. Right? So Jesus says, so that you might know that I have this authority and this is who I am, because I want you to know that, I cure this person. Right? So he is, in a sense, curing this person, because he certainly, of course, is moved with compassion and charity and wants to help this person. He's not just making them into an exhibit, but he's saying that the major thrust for this is so that you might know that I have this authority that is much more important than this. Right? Because if we think about it, this person who is cured, of course, dies again. Right? Eventually dies. This person doesn't live forever. Right? So the important thing, really, from the miracle, the most important thing, and this is what Jesus is revealing by working the miracles, is to reveal that he has this cosmic authority, that he is God himself, right? And so I think that's just really important to know that in these miracles, he's trying to also get across that really important topic, and in that sense is revealing himself to us through his miracles by showing and establishing his power and his authority. Jesus is also revealed. We learn about Jesus, we learn about an aspect of Christ, about God himself, by looking at the fact that Jesus spends a lot of time in outreach to quote-unquote sinners, right? Going to their houses, speaking to them, prostitutes, tax collectors, adulterers, right? Jesus is going to them. He's going to their house. He's going out to find them, right? And so in that, we see something that's really important. And I think we have to, of course, I always take this opportunity just to say, we have to imitate that, right? We have to go out wherever we can, right? To find the people who are lost. It's a great gift, actually, that God has given to us to say, you help feed these people that are hungry. You help clothe these people that are hurting. Help the people that are hurting. All those kind of things. Give drink to the thirsty, right? So Jesus is revealing an aspect of God, and in that outreach to sinners, that we are to also imitate as well, right? We might not be able, God most of the time, in fact, probably all of the time, barring some really interesting or strange situation, right? We are not going to be able to work the type of miracles that Jesus works, right? We're not going to be able to teach with the exact same kind of authority as the Son of God does, right? But we can do this. We can imitate his outreach to sinners. We can imitate his sacrifice that he ends up making for us. We can imitate all of his good qualities as well. Okay, so this is something that we can do, but again, it's a way God is revealing himself and saying, this is an aspect of me that I want you to know that is super important and that you need to imitate as well. Also, another thing, as we look at this public ministry of Jesus, he's also revealing himself in a particular way and in a special way to his 12 apostles. Okay, there are times where Jesus takes them aside. He does something public and teaches a crowd, and then he says he pulls his disciples aside, he pulls his apostles aside, and gives them sort of extra teaching, right? Behind the scenes access, kind of special instructions or clarifications on things. A little bit of a smaller little group of people, of course, to really kind of break these things down with. But he also, he challenges them sometimes and rebukes them privately, right? So he's giving them this formation, this sort of private kind of extra teaching sessions that are going on. And I think one of the reasons for that, of course, is it's easier to, and Jesus chose this method of, I want to form a particularly close group of people, sort of an inner circle, because you can only be in relationship with so many people. Even God is showing us this, right? We can really only be in a good, deep, really solid relationship because of the time commitments that we have and how much time a good, solid friendship takes. We can only be in that with some people. And so because I can only be in that with some people, then Jesus can only challenge them and give them these extra pieces because he has this relationship with them. Right? So because he has this, it's not that he could have told all these other people. No, Jesus said, look, I have special things for you because you can hear it because you know me really well. You've been with me, you've seen all these things. Whereas this guy that I just spoke to for the first time is, Jesus is saying, there might be things that I cannot convey to this person because he's just hearing me for the first time, doesn't know who I am, and is still trying to figure out, is this God or whatever it might be, right? So we have these private tutoring sessions where we are granted access as well through the Gospels to see these special instructions that Jesus gives these 12 apostles. So one of them, the disciples approached Jesus and said, why do you speak to them in parables? Right? They said, why are you always challenging them and confusing them? Jesus says to them in reply, because knowledge of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven has been granted to you, but to them it has not been granted. So Jesus is telling to the apostles, he's saying, look, you have this great key insights that I'm able to give you because of your faith and because of what you've seen behind the scenes. They do not have that yet. Right? That has not been granted to them because of that situation, that there are only certain people that God could reveal himself completely to, that Jesus could reveal himself in that friendship way. Okay? So anyways, that goes on there, that parable, Jesus kind of breaks that down with them, but he's telling them, look, knowledge of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you as the apostles, because I'm doing that right now, but it has not been granted to all of the people. And again, that's another reason that after Jesus' death, the apostles are sent out, and the church continues to explain and teach and draw all people into this relationship with Jesus. Okay? Our questions for today, again, referencing that chart of miracles that's in your textbook, all the miracles of the Gospels, what I want you to do is just look through those and just, which are the three that you are most fascinated by or most like, or are your favorite miracles from the Gospels? Right? Just look over that list really quick. It's a quick little, beautiful little summation. It's just amazing to see all those things that Jesus did in that short little span of time, and how many people he worked miracles in their lives and all that. So which ones speak to you? Which three are your favorite miracle stories? Number two, how was Jesus revealed to the world when he was baptized? Okay, how was Jesus revealed to the world in his baptism? Number three, how was Jesus revealed to the world in his teaching? Right? When he was going around teaching and explaining, how is it, what could you say about what we learn about Jesus through that, and how is God revealed to us in that way? Number four, how is Jesus revealed to the world in his outreach to sinners? Right? What is it that we learn about God? How does God reveal himself to us when we see him going out and serving others, particularly those who are fallen away, who are sinners, who are people that have done things that were typically looked down on, that Jesus still goes out and talks to and reaches out to. Number five, how is he revealed to the world through his teaching to his 12 apostles. What was it about God that we see now when we look at the Gospels? What are we able to understand and recognize in those special training sessions that God has with his apostles, that Jesus has with his apostles in a particular way? Okay? So that's the conclusion of our class today. Again, another little, kind of a shorter one, so I'm sure no one is upset by that. But I hope that you're doing well, and please just know that if you ever need anything, if you'd ever like to talk, if you'd ever like spiritual direction, if you'd ever like to just get together and ask questions, whatever it is that I can do for you, please let me know. I'm happy to do that. I'm always praying for you. And again, know of my prayers for you. God bless, and we'll see you next week.